DeAndre Tillman is an attorney and alderman who not only transacts real estate deals, but is a homeowner himself. He shares how real estate planning is key to protecting assets and preserving generational wealth.
So estate planning is the process in which you decide what to do with your assets while you are living and once you pass away. So it's important to kind of plan your estate while you're living, because you don't want a situation where one day in the future, let's say you go to a nursing home or something happens where you have some cognitive issue and you're unable to plan your estate. There is a case where we helped a person who mom passed away. She had a number of creditors, but she had significant assets. She didn't leave a will, or she didn't do any estate planning. So the problem is, when we opened up the probate, creditor after creditor after creditor filed a claim, to the point where, there was not much money that was going to go to the heirs. Anybody and everybody should do some form of estate plan. It doesn't matter if you have a house or if you have a lot of money, if you have children or no children. We always recommend that you start some estate planning, and you can always amend it over the years. Every time you have a significant something that happens in life, you purchase a house, you have a child, just amend it as you go. You can certainly use estate planning for tax advantages after you pass away, right? So a common misconception is while you're here. So you can't use a trust to kind of avoid taxes while you're here, right? That is going to be just treated as a pass-through entity. You're going to pay those taxes just as if it was your income. So if a person doesn't do any estate planning and they're left a house, by law, they have to go through the probate process. And this is a process that can take at least 6 months. So you have to give notice to all the heirs, and you have to leave the probate open for at least 6 months to allow creditors the ability to come in and file claims against the estate. And everything is public. And it can cost thousands of dollars just for the attorney's fees. So, that's one thing that you just want to avoid with planning your estate. And that's probably the biggest thing. So there's two things that people really want to do when it comes to estate planning, and that is avoiding probate and controlling your asset from the grave, right? And so in the state of Illinois, if you own, say, a house or any assets over $100,000 in your name, you have to go through a process called probate. That is a process where you have to give notice to all creditors, all heirs, and it's public. And so if you owe money to creditors, they can come into court and they can ultimately say, you pay us first before the money goes to your loved ones. And so if you were to estate plan, you can kind of avoid that. There are certain things and tools that you can use and vehicles that you can use to avoid court completely. And a second thing that I was going to touch on was controlling the asset from the grave. So a lot of times you may deal with beneficiaries who aren't ready at the time. So what we do in a lot of our, trust. So trust is probably the best vehicle for estate planning. And so if you own property and you put the property into a trust, you can work that trust with very specific provisions how you want. Homeowners who want heirs to potentially manage assets in the future, they should do a number of things. Number one, they should absolutely communicate to the heirs what the wishes are or what the plans are prior to anything happening to them. We oftentimes see cases where something tragically happens untimely and the heirs probably wasn't ready. You have to be ready to take assets. And then what happens in those cases? We find oftentimes that the heirs sell that property quickly, just to the first person that makes an offer. And so much money is left on the table just because the heirs are not ready or not capable or whatever reason to manage the assets. And they just take the money and go, and they don't get the full benefit of it. Secondly, if you properly plan the estate, it's important that, you put certain things in place so that if you have a lot of properties and investments, you have somebody who can manage it. So if you're going to name an individual trustee, make sure that this is a person that's familiar with managing property. Or you can name a financial institution or some expert or professional in the field as the trustee to manage it for the benefit of the heirs. So when it comes to addressing systemic problems in the Black community as it relates to homeownership, first of all, it's important to do education and just getting the word out there. There are so many people out there that they don't understand that they are currently in a position to purchase because there are programs out there that will help you with down payment assistance. Another way that's really important is when we have these homes within these neighborhoods that are, in our community, it is important to maintain the home and man it and make sure that you keep the home in a manner that is consistent with the neighborhood, because oftentimes what we see is blighted homes all throughout the community that kind of lower the value of the homes in the community and ultimately affect everybody in the community because the home prices have decreased in certain areas. And also making sure you don't just walk away from homes, because when homes get foreclosed on in these areas in large amounts, oftentimes we see those fall off the tax roll. And when homes fall off the tax roll, that's made up by the other homeowners. And so when you look at, for example, the tax rates right now in Cook County, some of the highest tax rates in the nation is in the south suburbs, and neighborhoods where home values aren't high. They're paying tax rates that are unaffordable. And a lot of that came way of all these abandoned homes and folks, leaving the community and that starts, that the problem is fixed, or the fix of the problem starts with us, just kind of investing into those homes and taking care of them. So to millennials who are starting their home ownership with generational wealth in mind, I would say, just do it. Just start the process. Oftentimes when you talk to older folks who didn't do certain things, their biggest regret is that they didn't buy into a certain neighborhood, because when they look back, 20 years later, they're saying those homes are now valued at, XYZ dollar amount. And if only I would have invested when I first thought about doing so, I would have a lot of wealth on my hands. And so, the biggest piece of advice for them is there are resources out there. There are things that they can get into right now. If they have, an income source, they potentially should get into purchasing a home, and they can. And so don't hesitate, just do it.